Welcome to Complexity Made Simple. My name is Paul Allen, and before we get into today's video newsletter, I'd like to offer you a free DMAIC guide that you can go to now and download using the link in the video description below. So before you watch today's video, click on the link and get your free guide now. Welcome to Complexity Made Simple. My name is Paul Allen, and the subject of today's video newsletter, well, we're going to dip into the lean subject today, and we're going to talk about safety stock in your pull system. And this is the question we're going to answer. What is safety stock? What is safety stock for? Okay, so this is predominantly, what is safety stock actually doing? Now this relates to, I did a little review with a client last week where we were talking about a pull system to protect the company against lost sales because they didn't have enough finished goods in stock. And they made a presentation, they made lots of calculations about how much safety stock they needed. And basically what they did was they'd overestimated the safety stock. For me, they'd overestimated the safety stock dramatically because they hadn't thought about what the safety stock practically was actually trying to do for them. Okay, so we're gonna look at a little simple example, and I'm going to say, well, look, what is safety stock primarily for, and therefore roughly how much of it should you hold? Okay, so let's take a look at this thing. So we're going to assume, let's take a product similar to what they were making. Let's say you're making hairspray. All right, so you're making hairspray and you're sending that out to supermarkets. Now, of course, you don't know exactly how many units of hairspray are going to be taken off the shelf in any one particular week, or indeed any one particular month. It is a random number. So the first thing we're going to say, just some assumptions here. The product regularly sells. Okay, so we're not talking about products here that just come completely out of the ether, completely unique to what you're doing, etc. We're talking that the product regularly sells. Okay, the product then is going to have a demand profile. So we have this hairspray that we are selling, and it's going to have a demand profile. Now, I'm just putting this in as a wavy line, but what this represents is a random number. So it sells regularly. The amount that we sell is random. The other thing I'm going to assume is that it's not seasonal in this case. Okay, so clearly if you were selling something like deodorant, that might be seasonal. You might sell more in the summer than you sell in the winter, although even the seasonality, it would have a function, it would have a quantity to it, and you can still predict seasonality. You should be able to predict this relatively well, as long as it's not like ice cream when the sun comes out and everybody goes crazy. So it sells regularly, it's random, and it's not seasonal. This thing just represents a random number that we get in terms of sales, and we'll say that the average consumption for this brand of hairspray is just 100 units, and this can be per week, per month, whatever kind of unit time that you want to look at. My advice to you is the more you break this down, so if you look weekly, the better this is going to work. If you respond to it in weeks, it works much better. But we'll suggest that the hairspray is being taken at 100 units a week on average, and that the variability that we get goes up. We'll say that it goes up to 130 and it goes down to 70. Okay, so and that's a random number. And of course, the random number is what everybody wants to know. Everybody says, well, if only my forecast was better. We need to work on the forecast. Well, no, you're trying to forecast a random number. It's like rolling a dice, 1 to 6. If I roll a dice, I know that the answer will come somewhere between these maximums and these minimums pretty much. But I can't predict a dice. There's no point saying, oh, if only we had a forecasting system that predicted where the dice would land. That would be so much easier. It's a random number. You have to accept that. And therefore, of course, this is what the safety stock, the majority of it, is actually for. Okay, so the safety stock is to deal with the randomness. Now, what this group did, so one of the things to say, so why I'm making this video, what the group did was they looked at this picture and they said, there's the maximum, 130. That's the maximum order that we get in any one particular week. Therefore, what we'll do is we'll carry safety stock for that order. Now, what they're doing here is they're suggesting that an item that sells regularly, okay, and which there is no risk, they are going to behave as if they make to order. So if they stand aside, they have no activity, no production activity at all until this weekly order arrives, and then they say, oh, how big was the weekly order? Then you have to carry 1/3. You have to carry a massive amount of stock. But pull systems typically should be linked with something else. It should be, you have a pull system but you should be linked to a planning system. Okay, so in other words, we're not behaving as if this was as a surprise. This company makes hairspray. The fact that we sold some hairspray is not a surprise. In fact, look, on average over the last year, we've been selling 100 units of hairspray every week. Well, in that case, what would be a relatively risk-free behavior to have? Well, the relatively risk-free behavior would be to make 100 every single week, or to order 100 every single week. However the supply chain works, it doesn't matter whether this is a making supply chain or a buying supply chain, the behavior is the same. So if the planning system always orders 100 per week, now what is the safety stock for? The safety stock is to deal with the variability. The safety stock is to deal with the randomness. And what you've done, you've taken away the randomness from your ordering policy, and therefore the only randomness that remains for you to deal with is the randomness of the customer buying the item. So now look, because our planning system delivers 100 a week, the safety stock doesn't need to be 130, it can just be the difference, which is 30 units. Now in reality, you might take that a little bit above that because you might not be absolutely sure where this randomness is going to go. I've drawn this a little bit too uniform. You wouldn't get such a uniform demand pattern. So you might increase your safety stock, and of course you might decide, well, what happens if the supplier lets us down? What happens if the supply, for instance, is coming across the English Channel? What happens if there's a storm in the channel and we can't get the goods via the boat across the channel and it's a few days late? So you might want to put more in here for those types of events. But you can see, look, we're not putting a week's worth of stock down here. We're putting much less. I mean, if you had a week's worth of stock and you decided that there was going to be a storm in the channel, this thing would go crazy. You'd be up here, you'd be carrying bucket loads of stock. It's not necessary, providing your planning system is delivering. Now here, what I've done, look, is I've said the planning system will deliver a fixed amount on a fixed time. Why have I done that? Because if I don't do that, what I get from the planning system is I get randomness from the planning system as well. So now, if we under-deliver right at the moment when somebody over-orders, now we have to deal with that variability, and I have to increase this safety stock. If I make the planning system repetitively order the average, the safety stock deals with the random number. That's about the signal and the noise. The signal is the average. That's what the planning system deals with. The noise is a random number. You cannot forecast it ever. Don't even try. If you could forecast it, you could forecast the next number on a dice, and that's not possible. So you're not going to try and forecast it. You're going to protect yourself with safety stock. Now this is a make to stock system. Once you've agreed that we're going to keep stock, this is a make to stock system, and that's what we're always going to do, because we know it's risk free. We know even if we get this wrong, even if we make a little bit too much and the safety stock drifts up, we could take some simple action, and we could just say, well, for the next few weeks, maybe we only make 80 to make the safety stock go back to where we want it to be. So we don't have to overreact. We don't have to take extraordinary action in order to deal with this. The safety stock deals with the random number. The planning system deals with the average, and between the two of them, they will guarantee you 100% on time in full. But that's what the safety stock is for. It's to deal with the random number. It is not to deal with the total order. If you put these two systems together correctly, you'll just get 100% on time in full, and hey, your customers will love you and you will make more money. And that's what this is about. Let's make more money.